everybody. Nice to see you all and see some friendly faces. Hi, Mike. Hi, Susan. Haven't seen you for ages. Right, I'm going to share my screen now so we can get started. She says, hoping that she's got anything secret up. Oh, you can tell I was going through this earlier, can't you? Right, so I'm Kerry Hackling. I'm from Cerub PR. I'll be talking to you this morning about how to elevate your PR. Now, if anyone's got any questions or anything they want to discuss as we go through, just unmute yourself and shout, because sometimes it's good to actually address the issues as they come up. So just jump in and say what you want to say, and then we can discuss it. So go for your life. So just a bit about us. We were founded in 2003, so we've been going for over 17 years now, which is a bit scary. We've won various awards. We're based in Bucks. We work with a really wide variety of consumer and B2B brands. We do a number of things which include media relations and press office work, campaign planning and delivery, copywriting and content generation, social media and digital influence engagement, and award entries. I mean, PR covers a whole gamut of things, so we do a lot of different things, which I will tell you about as we go along, give you some examples. But as a quick overview, that's us. A lot of people don't actually understand what PR is. I'm sure everybody here does, but just as an introduction, hopefully you've all got an overall marketing strategy or something along those lines, but implementing effective PR strategy as part of it will help you communicate with your audiences through various channels in a more meaningful way, which includes generating press coverage in media, which engages with your audience. And press coverage is basically unpaid press coverage from an independent third party. It presents your business as credible and trustworthy because it's from a third party. It's not advertising. It's not you saying, yes, we're fabulous. Somebody else is saying they're fabulous, and that's really the key to it. It's about that independent reviews and independent opinion that gives you that credibility. An effective PR strategy, like I said, it feeds into all sorts of things, but it can also help you make the most of communication channels like social media and partnerships, which I will come on to a little bit later. PR is really important. I mean, if you think about it, everything you do is PR. From the first impression you make at a networking event to your website, and it's about company awareness fundamentally, and it can make your sales process much more effective. It's much easier to get a foot in the door of a potential client where people are already aware of your company and your products and your services. We're working with a vet pharmaceutical company at the moment, and what their sales team is finding is when they are ringing up to make appointments or try and get into a vet surgery to sell their products, when they go there, their potential clients are already saying, oh, I know that you specialise in this product or that product. I read about it in Veterinary Times. And it's making their sales process much more streamlined, and it's making their sales team more effective. It's also making them seem more credible because the press coverage they're getting that they weren't getting maybe a year ago is showing they exist even. So that familiarity sort of already sort of helps you become seen to your potential audience. So it's something that's really, really important. It's also really cost effective. So if you spend £1,000 on advertising, you might get a page in whatever magazine. The impact of spending £1,000 on PR, though, can be much more significant and can go much, much further. So as an example, we did a book launch for a woman a few years back, and she spent however much a month with us. But in the first month, we got her onto the Daily Mail Online, which is actually one of the most read websites in the world. And we got that, and that was really good. So it was a few days working together, we got her that coverage, fantastic. But then we started to see this really weird coverage coming through. We had China Daily Post, we had phone calls from Australian television, we were in Indian media, we were everywhere. It was unbelievable. Now, she couldn't have bought that PR. Even if she'd had a massive advertising budget, she couldn't have bought it because it was credible, because people had been writing about her independently. And it was so interesting to see the impact of that. And of course, then that affects their social media channels because there was so much more content to share. It was absolutely amazing. But PR is so much more effective. I mean, there is a negative to PR, which I will be honest about, which is, and there are no guarantees. You know, we can't make something magically of interest to the press, especially if news channels change. So, for example, we were due to get something in the Times. This was a few years ago, but we were really excited to get this piece in the Times. But then Michael Jackson died, so everything was wiped off the schedules. But you know, with persistence and planning, it can be really, really effective. And you know, you need to identify your audiences, but your audience, which is not your key target market now, might be in 5 years, and the more you are seen by them now, the more impact you're going to have when they are ready to come to you. I mean, it might be things like mothercare. You know, everyone knew what mothercare was. It didn't matter that you weren't going to have a baby then, but your first port of call, if you were going to have a baby later, was mothercare. These are just an example of some average with. So for the Mail Online is the one that went viral. That was the one that went to India and Australia, bizarrely. The BBC Two piece was an interview with a client about bad career advice that people will be given. The Higher Bucks piece was about a literary festival we were working on, which took place in Buckingham. The Telegraph piece was a gift guide for motorheads. Motorheads, petrolheads, that's the phrase I mean. And the Express piece in the Windsor newspaper was about a fundraising effort that our client did. And I think the thing that this goes to show is that it's such a wide variety of things that you can do, and most people read this stuff and they don't realise it's put there by a PR agency. They think that it automatically appears because a researcher or a producer or a journalist has gone and sought these stories out. Actually, that's not the case. We go to them, we make it interesting to them, and that's something that you need to do if you're gonna do your own PR. You need to think about what's going to be interesting and push it forward to the media, because otherwise they're not going to know about you. There are 3 different types of PR. The first one is owned PR, which is content strategically placed within a news environment. So it looks and feels like a news item or article, which may be sponsored. It's content which appears on websites and mobile sites and social media channels, and it can benefit SEO and drive earned media. Now, what we specialise in is earned media, which is newsworthy content placed on core news channels. And that includes social sharing and mentions and posts and stuff that you proactively do yourself. But that's the stuff that you earn. And it's that kind of the hardest thing to do, actually, because if someone always wants to take your money to advertise, but this is a sort of convincing process. We need to convince them that your story is of interest. And paid PR is paid advertising, like paid search and display ads, retargeting, paid influencers, content promotion, and native advertising and social media ads. I think the thing that people need to consider is it's got to be part of something bigger. PR doesn't work in isolation. It's not a magic bullet. It has to be joined up with the other marketing activities that you're doing. So you've got the PR, you've got the SEO, content marketing, and that feeds into that. So anything you send out to the press needs to be relevant to your SEO, because the terms need to be similar, because that drives that. And that then leads into your PPC, and that leads into your social media and your email marketing. And it all really needs to be part of a bigger thinking strategy, because, you know, PR in isolation, that's great, but by itself, it's not magic. So it's worth keeping that in mind and thinking about what else you can do as you go along. And this is something else that says the thing. So PR can amplify your message. So if you've got a paid ad, well, if you've got the story, the PR, which leads to your social media, which leads to your email marketing, which leads to your SEO and content marketing and paid ads. So again, it's really got to work cohesively. So a good place to start is to agree your key messages. What does your business stand for? Do you know what your business stands for? Do you know why your customers buy from you? We spoke to a company that specialised in HR software a little while ago, and they thought they were a software company. And actually, their customers weren't buying the software. They were buying the software, but they were buying the solution. The software was part of the solution, but it was interesting how they didn't see their target audience as being the HR professionals. They saw the target media as being the tech media, but actually the people buying the product were the HR people. And it's interesting how they didn't really understand what it was they did or what their customers were buying. And it's always good to speak to customers and find out why it is they're buying from you. You know, do you think you're selling this, but they're buying this? Because quite often it's sort of out of sync. And when you're in a business, it can be quite difficult to understand what your customers are thinking about you. Just before this started, actually, I was reading a review in the Telegraph about the new Mary Berry programme that started last night. And it was called Simple Comforts. It was a cookery programme. But what the reviewer said was that the programme itself wasn't actually about simple comforts at all. The recipes were really complicated. She went to France, which obviously not many of us are doing right now. It was just completely out of sync with what the title of the programme was. And that's a really good example of how a key message has got confused, because people tuning in looking for simple comforts actually got really complicated French recipes. So I thought that was quite interesting, in the sense that they completely lost sight of who their audience or what their audience was tuning in to see. Excuse me. So you need to make sure all your key messages are aligned. Does your website reflect your key messages? Does your social media activity reflect it? And what about your other marketing activity? There's no point being overly friendly and overly chatty on social media if you're Chanel. That's not why people are buying from you. And what do you want your audience to understand about your products and services? Again, it's really worth asking your customers what it is that they think your company is about, because they're the ones that are seeing you independently. They're not seeing you from the inside, they're seeing you as a third party. And even if it's not your customers, ask people you know, ask your network, find out what they really think of your business and tie their messages in with what you're saying and what you're communicating out. Identifying your audience. So that leads on from what we were just saying. There is no point doing any PR if you don't know who your audience is. It's worth sitting down and making a list of who's been buying from you, what kind of people they are. Are they professionals who need your service? Are they HR managers? Are they facility managers? Are they interior designers? Mike, I know that you know what you do is quite a specialised service, and you know who your clients are, but you need to reach those people to make sure you're making the most of it. Are they consumers? Are they businesses? Are they male? Are they female? Are they parents? All those sorts of things influence the kind of media that you need to contact. We had a client a while ago who really wanted to be on the Today programme on Radio 4, and he wanted to be on daytime television. But the problem was that the daytime television people weren't actually going to be the professionals that he needed to reach, because HR managers aren't sat at home watching This Morning. You've really got to direct your efforts, especially if you've got limited budget and limited time. You've got to make sure you're directing your efforts in the right way. So, for example, where are they based? If you run a shop in Beaconsfield and you don't have an online presence, there's not much point promoting your business in national media, because you are only really going to make a difference if you promote your business in Buckinghamshire. And again, what sort of interests do they have? What sort of information are they looking for? Are they looking for advice or product reviews or training opportunities? And those sorts of things will lead you on to what media your audience engages with. So consumers will be engaging with Reg magazine, for example. Interior designers will be maybe looking at things like Home and Gardens. Trade magazines, there's so many trade magazines out there, but you need to work like HR magazines. I keep going back to HR, it's a good example. But there are lots of HR magazines out there that HR software companies need to reach. Think about what TV, radio they're listening to. Like I say, there's no point in being on daytime TV if your audience isn't actually watching daytime TV. So we're thinking about all those things. So the fundamentals of PR is PR 101, spreading the word. So we talked about marketing schedules earlier. So try and schedule your PR activity about your marketing schedule. So what new products or services are you launching? Can you send them out to people or invite journalists in to find out more? If you've got initiatives you're implementing that might be of interest to your audience. Seasonal opportunities are really good as well. So planning your year in advance and looking at the seasonal opportunities. So I think we were due to have, I don't know if they're here, but there's a luxury campsite that was due to be involved today. But the seasonal opportunities for them are quite obvious because they want to be in the spring, summer editions of newspapers. So thinking about the lead times of magazines, and the lead times are different as well. So a long lead magazine, which is a glossy magazine, might have a 6-month lead time, whereas a newspaper has, you know, the supplements have maybe 2 months and the newspaper itself has a couple of days, but you can tie those in so you know when to contact people. One of our clients, the veterinary pharmaceutical company, they're actually launching a new product at Christmas. So we're working on that, and we have been for the past few months to get that all together. But we've known that was going to happen for the last 8 months. So we've got a schedule that we work towards to make sure we hit the press at the right time. You can also take advantage of opportunities to comment, and don't be afraid to share your knowledge. So if you see a story that's out there that you think is of interest and that you can comment on, then take the opportunity to comment and send something out to the local media. Accountancy firms right now, I mean, with all the stuff that's going on in the economy, it's a great idea for accountancy firms to comment on what they think is going to happen next and what companies need to do to protect themselves over the next year or so. And you can do that by contacting the media, contacting the target audience media to share your knowledge. So if you specialise in pharmaceuticals, for example, contact the pharmaceutical press and see if they're interested in an article from you. I'll come on to that a little bit more later. You can also share your company news. You know, have you won any awards? Awards are really important, and they generate great opportunities for PR, great opportunities for social media. Have you made any significant hires if you're in an industry where you know, you're a brand that's relatively well known and you've stolen another CEO or an operations manager from another company? That's worth talking about as well. Even things like raising money for charity is quite good. A lot of our clients do charity initiatives as part of their CSR policies. And when you've got pictures of a charity car wash or, you know, a fancy dress day or something like that, that can be really useful for local. So pictures and news stories about those. It just goes to raise awareness in your, again, back to the target audience. If you've got a local company, those are the kind of things to look at. If you've got a national company, then you can go in a different direction. So creative PR is obviously more work, but you can still implement it yourself. Are you launching an innovative new product or service? Who is it aimed at? What is your overarching objective? Do you want sales and sign-ups, etc.? And what can you do to promote it? So to get your team involved, think big, brainstorm ideas. We were talking to a company last year, which was a children's sort of farm activity centre thing, and they wanted to do something specifically about Halloween. So we came up with the idea where they would hold a week where the normal animals, you know, the sheep and the cows, would be replaced by tarantulas and snakes, because that would have been a really good news story to send to the national press, because the national press always runs, and we go back to the seasonality, but the national press in the run up to Halloween, it's always, you know, what spooky things can you do with your children? But that would have been a really good example of getting people into the farm, because it was a completely different thing. Come, you know, don't come and see the lambs now, come and see the tarantulas, come and see the spiders and the snakes. And it would have been a really fun thing to do. So you can think about things like that and how you can sort of put different angles on the stories that you're doing. Think creatively, what would make people get involved? Why would they sign up to you? What are they going to get out of it? There's so many ways that you can come up with those creative ideas, and it, you know, no idea is a bad idea, and they can spark off. Years ago, when I worked for a big PR company, we had a brainstorm, and it was about yogurts for some reason, and it was children yogurts. So we came up with the idea of doing yogurt art, because you know how children used to, when I was at school anyway, used to use those yogurt pots to put in their paints and things like that. So we came up with this yogurt art idea, which was completely ridiculous, but it led to something that was actually implemented and was a good idea. So just to see where it takes you, think about the things that you can do. Develop a smart multi-channel campaign as well. See how you can adapt it to your different multi-channels, your social media channels and your marketing channels and the other things that you're doing. It's not just about getting in the press, but it's about spreading the word wider than that, which brings people to your website so they can find out more. Look at what your competition is doing as well. It's really worth finding out what the people in your field are doing that's working for them, what's caught your eye, because quite often you'll see your competition in the press and you'll be like, oh, hang on, how are they there and I'm not? So instead of thinking like that, just think, right, they're there, I can do better than that, and think about what might be more interesting to the press. It's, you know, if they are there and you're not, it's possibly because they're doing their PR and they're seeing themselves, they're putting themselves in front of journalists. And work out your tactics. You know, is it going to be about press releases, which work or sometimes not, depending on what the campaign is? You know, who are you going to bring in? Are you going to hire a celebrity? Are you going to talk to the press in a specific way? You're going to send products out. There's all sorts of ways that you can do that. Creative PR is a very big thing that we don't have time really to cover here, and it's something that's unique to each company as well. But a good place to start is getting your whole team involved, or your network involved, and thinking about things that you can all come up with together. So thought leadership, if you're a corporate or if you're in a professional services business, thought leadership is something that can be really, really effective. And we work with a lot of thought leaders. Actually, you know, even consumers. So, I mean, we've worked with psychologists and things like that who we have positioned as thought leaders within the industry. So in terms of, we worked with Thomas International for a few years, which is a psychometric assessment company. So we worked with the HR press to generate commissioned articles. So what we would do is we would talk to them about what they were working on and the trends that they saw in the industry. We would come up with a story idea to approach the press with. So it might have been something like just off the top of my head, what will happen, you know, when millennials enter the job market, what's going to change. So we would come up with the topics, we would come up with the key points that we wanted to make, and we would go to the press, the HR press, who were targeting people who would have bought the software, and we would say to them, would you be interested in a commissioned article from our client about X, Y, and Z? And on the basis of that, we got a regular column in a magazine that went out every single month, and it was fantastic, you know. And again, it was free; they didn't buy that. And we've had the same thing with a security company that we've worked with. They had a regular piece in Security Matters magazine, and that regularity meant that when the MD of the security company went and spoke at a conference in Germany, everybody knew who he was. Apparently, he said he was on a panel with a whole bunch of people, and he's quite modest, and he was thinking, well, I'm just here to make up the numbers. He didn't really think he was there as a sort of significant contributor. But when it turned out at the end that everybody wanted to ask him questions because they'd read his thoughts, they'd read his opinions, and they saw him as a significant player in the industry, that's when he realised it was paying off. There's also personal profiling. So if you've got an interesting story to tell, it's worth talking about that. Our vet product client, we got their MD in one of the leading vet magazines recently talking about how they've coped in lockdown, what's been going on within the business. So those kind of leadership things are good. They show that they put a face to the company so people can see who you are. And again, it's about that credibility. The more you do that as well, the more people will come to you to comment on relevant issues. So make yourself available to comment. You know, if you speak to a journalist, say, you know, if you're looking for a comment on this, this and this, give me a shout. I'd be more than happy to help. What happened with one of our clients was that we were doing a book PR campaign for them, and in the end, BBC 5 Live, whenever they were looking for a business leader to comment, they would automatically go to him because we'd arranged so many interviews for him by pitching to them saying, Alex is available for X, Y, and Z. They just got used to him being a reliable and credible expert, so they would come to us, which was brilliant. You can also monitor the national news for opportunities to hijack, which is what we call issues hijacking. It sounds daunting, but actually it's one of my favourite things. It's really good fun. When a news story breaks, which is relevant to your industry, so I'll just use this example again, this business book. So it was during, you know, when they introduced the age of austerity, and the book was about how businesses could cope in the age of austerity. So every time there was a story on the Today programme or in the Telegraph or whatever about how businesses would cope, we would send a press release out or a media alert out to all the media saying that Alex was available to comment, his thoughts were X, Y, and Z, and we sent it to everybody. And on the back of that, we got him on Sky News, the World Service, CNBC, BBC Radio 5 Live, the Today programme booked him, you know, really relevant, credible media. Now, obviously that's not open to everybody and that's not going to work for everybody, I mean, in a national sense. But if there is a local regional story you can comment on, then there's nothing to stop you contacting BBC Three Counties and saying, you know, I have an opinion on this local issue. We had the same thing recently with the back to school thing when the kids went back to school, because we're working with a childcare expert who was able to comment on different radio stations about the challenges that children might face and how their parents could support them. But that again is an example of issues hijacking. Sometimes the right media lists do help, but I'll come on to that shortly. Case studies are another good way of going forward. If you can prove that your technology or your services have helped people, then case studies can be great, especially with the trade press. So bringing into your discussions kind of the kind of people that you've worked with and the impact you've had, and comments from them can be really, really good. Develop a database if you've got people who are happy to appear in the media as a case study. I mean, it's no different from testimonials really, but if you've got people who are willing to appear in the media as a case study, note their story down, get images of them. Images work really, really well in any PR story if you've got them. Look at the right kind of media to pitch them to based on age, gender, location. Again, something that we worked on with our mental health clinic that we worked with last year. They had case studies who had been to the clinic to help them deal with mental health problems, obviously. So by pitching those case studies to the press to talk about what helped them get through a difficult situation, that was really impactful, and it really raised awareness of our clients. And finding case studies can be tricky, especially with mental health, but you know, that was really, really significant PR for them. It showed how they helped and what they could do, and also gave people inspiration on how they could deal with their problems. That worked really, really well. So think about case studies, especially if you're a life coach or a business coach, things like that, those work really well. So the communication methods that we use to approach the press are press releases. Sometimes they're not appropriate for everything. I'll talk about that a bit later. The commissioned articles and columns, the case studies. If you've got the capacity, it's always useful to create reports or surveys to issue to the press. Sometimes you can use external companies for that, or you can do your own depending on how big your contact list is. And sharing your opinions on things. You know, if you approach the local press, so even things like the Buckinghamshire, which most of you will be aware of, if there's something happening and you ring them up and say, look, I'd really like to comment on this because I think I've got an answer for Buckinghamshire businesses, those are worth doing. There are lots of different ways to contact the press, and actually I wouldn't underestimate the power of social media of that as well. So a lot of journalists are online, so start to work out the ones that might be interested in your stories, contact them directly on social media and say, you know, I know you're writing about this at the moment, or I saw a piece from you about this. I wondered whether you might be interested in my thoughts on. So use your social media to your advantage, because it's opened up a whole new way of contacting journalists and a whole new way of contacting people that you didn't have before. So make the most of those opportunities. There's something called, there's a hashtag, which is journo requests, and it's worth looking at that as well, because a lot of journalists will put inquiries out for case studies and they will put hashtag journo requests. And if it's relevant to you, then it's worth replying. I think we did one just recently, actually. There was someone put something out and we responded on our own behalf. And we've actually, bizarrely, the piece has been picked up by the Gibraltar Times, an Irish newspaper. I mean, we've had coverage in like 12 newspapers just because this journalist writes for Press Association, and it's gone completely mad. It's bizarre, but good. So it's worth looking on social media to see what's there that you can maybe take advantage of. And how to contact the media. So most magazines and newspaper carry journalist contact details, and these days they're really easy to find. When I started working in PR, there was no way of doing it on your own. You had to buy a media database, whereas now with the internet, the magic of the internet, you're able to find out pretty easily the journalist contact details, and you can research into TV and radio program details. And again, that's about using social media potentially. You can you know, if you're listening to BBC Three Counties, you know that Roberto, oh my God, I've forgotten his surname. That's awful, I've been on the show. Anyway, Roberto has an evening radio show. So you can contact them directly, you can follow them on social media, you can put yourself forward. And actually, if you've got the phone number, just ring up and see if anyone's interested. The BBC contact details, actually, if there is anybody that you are particularly interested in contacting, the BBC email details are firstname.secondname@bbc.co.uk. So don't stalk people, obviously, but if there is someone like Roberto Peroni, remember his name, on the show, on the programme that you particularly are interested in being on, it's worth dropping him a line. You just don't know. I would do intensive research into the target media and build a media list detailing names, emails and phone numbers of key publications. The research, I can't stress enough how important it is. It's worth putting in that time at the beginning, and that's going to pay off in the long term, because there's literally no point. I mean, journalists complain endlessly about getting random press releases from companies that don't understand what they write about. It's frustrating for the journalist. It doesn't give you a good reputation, and it means that you're wasting your time. There's just no point. So any magazines that you want to contact, read them, get hold of them, look at them online, see what they're talking about and see whether they're relevant to your audience. Because quite often, I mean, even with the veterinary magazines, there's a lot of veterinary journals out there. Now, there's no point us contacting them on behalf of our client because they don't do studies, they sell products. So we just write them off. It's a waste of the client's money for us to do that. So it's better to concentrate on 3 key publications that suit you than 300 that are random, because you'll just go into an inbox and be forgotten. They get thousands of emails every day, so you've got to make sure that the ones you're contacting are right for you. So you send a press release in the body of an email with a short covering note, which has got to be short and snappy to get their attention. The shorter, snappier, the better, because they don't have time to read a press release unless you've really got that first line right. And after you sent the press release, get on the phone. The amount of times that we've had no interest from a journalist from an initial press release, not because the press release wasn't good or interesting, but just because they got 3,000. So when we rung them up and said, look, we sent this over, it was about XYZ, is it of interest? And then they'll say, actually, yeah, let me look that up. And we've had really, really good responses from those follow-up calls. You can't always get hold of journalists on the phone, but in terms of persistence, a client we worked on was a hormone health specialist, and I just knew she would be right for a piece in Stella magazine and the Sunday Telegraph. I just knew she'd be perfect for this particular feature. So we emailed the journalist. We didn't hear anything back. We emailed her again. We did email, didn't hear anything back. And it went on for quite some time, but I was still absolutely determined we were going to get this piece in. And we don't want to stalk people, but we know this journalist is really, really busy because she works at the Sunday Telegraph. So I think we were in a meeting one day, or the girls, my team were in a meeting over the other side of the office, and I was just sat at my computer. And suddenly they both start going mad and waving their arms at me and screaming, well, screaming quietly. And they wrote me a big note saying, Stella said yes. And it was the 21st email we sent. Now, like I say, you don't want to stalk journalists, you don't want to send 21 emails in an ideal world. But literally, she hadn't seen the email because she had so many. So we just persisted. And eventually we got our whole page in the Telegraph. So persistence is really important. And track your progress. Make notes of conversations to refer back to. When we've got our media list, if we speak to a journalist from a specific magazine, we make a note of what that conversation said, because it might be that they say, oh, actually, that's not right for us just yet, but if you could come back to us in 6 months or a month or whatever, I'm doing a feature on this then you've got something to diarise, you've got something to go back with. And that's how you can build that relationship, because then you can go back when you speak to them and say, oh, I spoke to you several months ago, you said X, Y, Z. So it's worth having those details to hand so you can keep track of what's going on. So press releases. Press releases have quite a bad reputation, probably deservedly so in some cases, but they can be relevant, so it's worth knowing how to write them. So press releases are relevant for things like new products, events or open days, anniversaries. If your company is celebrating an anniversary, that's always worth doing. If you're being shortlisted for or winning awards, you all know about the Buckinghamshire Business Awards, I'm sure, but that generates a lot of publicity. It generates publicity which we organise, but also winners have gone on and done their own PR within their trade media, and that's had a lot of impact as well. Any new staff appointments which show that your company is growing, that's always worth doing as well. Company announcements, if companies are partnering with your company to do something, or buyouts. I mean, one of our clients was merged with another company, so that generated a lot of publicity in the city press. And fundraising efforts always go down really well. People really like the fundraising efforts. Things like, I mean, was it Major Tom or Captain Tom, the fundraising that happened, that started from a press release. A really, really small PR agency, I think it was a freelancer actually, sent a press release out to the local media that he was doing this walk, and that got picked up by the national press. And after that, I mean, we all know what happened to that, but that started from a press release. I mean, so they are worth still doing. But you just need to think about what it is you want to communicate and what your audience takes away with them. And that goes from the inverted pyramid. So the most newsworthy information has to go at the top, which is who, what, where, why, when, and how. And that's got to be kind of a short paragraph saying that information. The important details, so you go into more details at the next stage, and that can include a quote from you as well. You know, we are delighted to have won, or we are thrilled to launch, or something along those lines. I'm being very generic here, obviously, but you can. There's actually really good resources online that you can look up how to write a press release and get some good examples. So it's worth doing that. And at the bottom, it has other general information, so background information about your company, your contact details, so people can contact you if they want more information. They need to know that you're open and you're available to answer their questions if they have any. And maximising your press coverage is so important. We've worked with clients before, we've got press coverage, amazing press coverage, and have just gone, oh, that's nice, and put it in a drawer. And they've forgotten that they actually have to use it. There's no point in having it, because if it's online, yeah, of course it lasts, but if it's in a newspaper, you've got to talk about it as much as possible to show your wider audience on social media what you've been doing. So post links to press coverage on business social media platforms. Spread the word far and wide, you know, get people will engage with you and say, oh, that's fantastic, well done. Alert your sales team, if you have one, to coverage achieved, to bring up with clients and potential clients. You can even put it in a newsletter or something. So if you're emailing your general clients saying, just thought you might be interested in seeing us in this magazine with our thoughts on, because it's something like draw attention to you and your opinions, show them that you are credible again, and engage with them a little bit more. It's really powerful having that press coverage, because just by being featured in the press in a positive way, it puts that positive light on you. So do what you can with your sales team. Like I say, we've actually had feedback from our veterinary clients that their sales have gone up through PR. Their sales team have found it easier to get foot in the door, and people are calling the office directly now, even without the sales team. Oh, I'd like to speak to you about this product that I read about. So it does work. You've just got to keep at it, but you've got to share it as much as possible. Create a press page on your website. That's quite useful. Use the mastheads. You can't use the press coverage because that's a contravention of copyright law, and if they catch you, they will charge you thousands. So I'd highly recommend not messing with these people. But you can create a press page and use the logos of the publications. So the client that I mentioned previously, who had all that international PR press coverage, she has a page on her website now, and it says as featured in the Daily Mail, the China Daily News, New York Times, and it doesn't date it because it's all true. You know, it doesn't say it was 3 years ago, but it doesn't really matter actually, because it's still true that she was featured in all those publications. So it just shows people that you are seen as an expert within that field. And include links to coverage and as featured in other marketing collaterals, so your newsletters, your blogs, those sorts of things. Any ourselves we've talked about in our blogs, and then we've sent those blogs, we've attached those blogs to social media posts, which draws people back to the website. And it also helps when you've got backlinks to your site as well. So anything that you have in the media that you share on social media which has a backlink then impacts on your SEO, which is obviously what everybody wants. So social media is like I say, it's all got to work together these days, but look at your options because not everything is relevant to everybody. We don't have a Facebook. I don't think it's relevant for what we do, to be honest, but we do have a Twitter and we do have LinkedIn. Instagram, I have a personal Instagram, but unless you're a very visual company, I think the window company, obviously you would need an Instagram. What you do is very visual. The Chadwell Hill Farm, like I said, I don't know if they're hit there, but again, that's a very visual thing. It's worth doing that. Look at the hashtags. Look at the hashtags your competition are using as well, actually, and sort of jump on the back of them. So what it is do you do? PR, marketing, etc. Who are your potential clients? Again, are they accountants? Are they stylists? The areas you operate in are important as well. So High Wycombe, Beaconsfield, people will be searching for those kind of terms. And creative, or popular hashtags like PR Advice Throwback Thursday. You'll need to go and do your own research onto those. You'll know what to look for and you'll know who your competition are. So find out what it is that they're doing and take some inspiration from them. It's important to engage with your audience. Don't just sort of throw stuff out there promotionally. People aren't interested in promotional tweets. What they're interested in is information and thoughts and opinions and getting to know you as a company. So engage with them by liking, retweeting and responding. If someone has an opinion on something, then respond by saying, actually, I disagree, or I do agree, or something like that. That's how you build your audience and build that engagement. And generate your own content as well, which is things like blogs, press releases, photos from events, press coverage. One of our clients at the moment, we're struggling to get them to do this. I think they're shy, but what we really want from them is videos. We need videos of their drivers out and about doing their job, because by having those drivers showing what they do, it's a really good indication of the things that they are coping with at the moment. It's kind of a protest thing we're doing. So what we want is their drivers to be stuck in London going, this traffic situation is a nightmare, because those videos will go a lot further than just us writing, the traffic is a nightmare. You know, we need people to be expressing their frustration in this particular case. But videos, I mean, you know, there's so many. Cute little pigs are a good example of how you use videos, because, you know, if you've got cute little pigs, why wouldn't you want videos of cute little pigs? But, you know, only if it's relevant to you. Don't go wasting your time if it's not relevant. And maximise your channels. Think beyond media relations. What other channels or activities can benefit your profile and raise awareness among audiences? So is it writing guest blogs for another organisation, or partnering with a charity or another organisation? Identify channels and develop campaigns around them. We ask people for guest blogs a lot, actually. We contact journalists that we know and say, would you be interested in doing a blog for our site about what it is you're looking for in stories? And that's worked quite well. And again, we've had blogs on other people's websites. It saves them doing it for a start, so that makes them happy. Saves us doing it, which makes us happy. But it's impactful, and it shows that you are working with other companies. And again, it helps your backlinks, so it's worth doing. But identify which channels are going to work for you and develop campaigns around them. There's so many options available these days. It's not like, you know, when I worked in PR 20 years ago, we've got so much else that we can do right now. So really look into what's working for your competitors and take some inspiration from them. I'm just going to see, actually, one thing I did want to mention, and I think it's on this slide, is partnerships with people. So I used to work for a charity, a mental health charity, and it was a really small charity. I mean, it wasn't as big as mine. They had quite a good media profile, but they were a small charity. And I saw that A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe was coming out. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's about John Nash, who was a genius, but he struggled with schizophrenia. And it's a really good film. It was directed by Ron Howard. And I happened to see in the press that this film was coming out. And I contacted my MD and I said, look, this is coming out. This is relevant. We need to raise awareness of schizophrenia. We need to raise awareness of mental health. Let's do something. And she sort of said, yeah, whatever. And off I went. So I contacted the distribution company in the UK and said, look, is there any way we could work together? Because we can hopefully help you raise awareness of the film in the UK, and potentially you can help us raise awareness of the charity. So they were kind of on board with this. So what we did, before the film was released, we arranged 2 screenings. One was a thank you screening for all our donors and supporters. So it was a pre-release screening in a Soho screening room, which was really exciting. So everyone turned up and had champagne and canapes and things, and then went in and watched the film. So that was a nice thing, nice little thank you to do. But the second one we arranged was for journalists. So it was for health journalists. And again, we had the champagne, we had a kind of intro from our R&D talking about the purpose of the charity and engaging with the media. And then we went in and watched the film. It was quite interesting what happened, because we did get some great coverage from that. We got coverage about the film on schizophrenia and a case study. But one of the journalists we really wanted to reach was a journalist from The Sun, because The Sun historically didn't have a great reputation for talking about mental health. So the health journalist from The Sun couldn't make it at the last minute because there was another crisis brewing. Like I say, these things happen. But I managed to convince the distribution company to let me have a DVD of the film. And like I say, it hadn't been released in cinemas yet. We got it biked to this journalist's house so she could watch it in her own time. And on the back of that, we got a double-page spread in The Sun, which was amazing. It was fantastic. But it's about that perseverance and about finding the other ways that you can get out there. So those partnerships are really, really important. So keep your eyes open, see what's going on. It's important to evaluate your results. You don't know if something's working unless you know it's working or not working. So the post-campaign evaluation areas are things like results versus objectives. Did you get your key messages across? Was there a call to action in what you put out there? Look at, if you've got 4 key messages you wanted to come across in the piece of coverage, tick them off. Did you get them? You need to look at the hard evidence, which is quantitative research, website and social media analytics. We always see a spike to our website when we get press coverage, and our clients do too, and we make them look at it so we can prove that what we're doing is working. There's soft evidence as well, which is qualitative research, observation, and anecdotal. The anecdotal stuff is when a client rings you and says, I read about you in this magazine, and we're getting a lot of that from the sales teams that our clients employ. So they're reporting back to the marketing manager and saying, okay, I went into this place, they said they saw this, they want to buy this much. So those are the kind of anecdotal things that we're getting through as well. And it's important to keep an eye on all of those things. Otherwise, you don't know if you're just wasting your time. And set up evaluation methods for moving forward. Think about what the future, PR isn't a magic bullet. It's not going to generate sales instantly. It might do, but it's not necessarily true. So if you're starting PR work today, look in 6 months' time, what do you hope to have achieved, and look at how you're going to evaluate that then. So keep track of it on going forward. Now, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what to look for in a PR agency, because I think it's worth thinking about, even if you're not doing it now. There's some people who think that specialist PR agencies are best, and maybe for some there are. We wouldn't touch fashion or beauty, for example. It's just so specialised. It's not something we would go near. But wide experience is quite useful. So companies with experience of different industries can help you see less obvious but important angles. So we were working with an engineering company who wanted to be in the engineering press, which was fine. But we said to them, well, actually, the people who are going to hire you are businesses who need your services. They're not necessarily engineering companies because they know what you do. So on the back of that, we got them into a lot of business press, which resulted in inquiries from people looking for the company to make their widgets. So finding different angles and finding different opportunities is really important. And I think with wider experience, that's easier to do. you need to have somebody you get on with and trust, because PR is a two-way street. So communication between you and your agency is essential. I mean, sometimes we speak to our clients once a day just because there's something going on, or there's something busy, or we've got a particular campaign happening. We need to call them and know they're not going to roll their eyes and go, oh God, it's them again. And we need them to sign things off. The relationship only works when things are signed off, when there's communication. I'm not happy with this, I am happy with this, yes, that's fine to go. It's something that happens to happen quickly, and that happens through communication. You've got to have a proactive company as well. So the agency should be focused on getting results, which means following up with journalists, chasing you should they need more information, paying attention to what's going on the media for opportunities they can take advantage of. There's so many times that we've just been, I don't know, picked up on stuff on TV, or just read an article in a magazine and gone, oh, that would work really well for our client, let's do that. Let's think about responding to this. They've got to have their eyes open and be constantly looking for opportunities for you. I mean, that same goes for you when you undertake your own PR, but it's really about that kind of, that awareness of the wider world. If you've got a PR agency that isn't reading the newspapers, even though, you know, people get their news online, I still get all the newspapers every weekend to go through and see what people are talking about, see what the columnists are saying. So it's really important to have your eyes open when you embark on any PR or work with an agency. So, final thoughts from me. I've probably whizzed through this because I talk so fast, but hopefully you'll have some questions. But the final thoughts really are to do your research, set aside time to do your PR. It's really worth just spending an hour a week or 2 hours a week just doing a little bit, whether it starts off looking at your key messages and then moves on to deciding on the media you want to contact, and then moves on to actually sending out a press release, writing a press release, sending it out and following up. So it's worth dedicating a little bit of time, because it's something that needs to be done consistently. So if you can block out time in your diary or get an assistant to do it, then it's worth investing that time, because it really can pay off. Again, keep your eyes open for opportunities, see what is going on in the world, get on social media, what are your competitors doing, just don't, I think it's very easy to get stuck in a way of doing it when you run your own business. I think we're as guilty of it as anybody, because you're running your business, you're servicing your clients, but you forget actually what is going on outside and what people can, what people see inside, if that makes sense. You've got to keep your eyes open, because those opportunities don't come along every day, and it's really worth taking advantage of the things that you see happening. Be persistent as well, as I've mentioned. You know, you've got to just keep at it and be patient. In terms of lead times, it's important to keep in mind what the lead times of magazines are. So if you are an interior design business and you want to be in homes and gardens, their lead time is 6 months. So if you want to, you know, you're sort of planning towards spring now. The newspapers, if it's actual news, then obviously there's a really quick turnaround. Radio, unless it's news, it's maybe about a week. Blogs obviously go up really quickly, but it's worth researching the media lead times. But be patient, because it's not overnight and it does take consistent. I think it's 7 touch points you have to have before people start to recognise your company name and your brand. So keep at it, use your PR properly, use your press coverage, tell people about it, don't put it in a drawer, and really look at what you're trying to achieve and use your network to help you understand how you can tap into the opportunities that exist, because people like to help, as we all know. So your company needs you. Unless you have got an agency, no one's going to do it for you. And when you're looking at the press and you're going, hang on, why is my competition in there and I'm not? It's probably because they're doing their own PR. So if you're not going to hire someone, you've got to do it yourself, but it's really, really worth persevering with. It's also quite fun. And that's me. Thank you very much for your time. If anyone's got any questions, then let me know. Shout now.
Great, thanks, Kerry. Yes, please feel free to either raise your hand or pop a question or anything in the chat room, or unmute and direct any questions directly to Kerry or myself.
Kerry, it's Mike at the Window Film Company here.
Hi, Mike.
Thank you for a couple of mentions in there. That was nice.
I'm doing your PR, you see.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, it's difficult for us because positioning ourselves is quite tricky, because we do a lot of lifestyle stuff and a lot of commercial stuff. So we could be doing, you know, our customer could be someone who wants £30 worth of window film or £250,000 worth of bomb blast film or something like that. So it is difficult for us. So everything you've said is interesting. Just thinking about pitching, Kerry, how has that changed over the last over recent years? Because obviously local newspapers are cutting back and the whole sort of print world is scaling back. is sort of short, sharp pitches and press releases better than a more in-depth one? Because sometimes our product as well is people don't necessarily know about it until they need it. So I think when I'm doing our stuff, I fall into the trap of probably explaining too much.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that holds us back a little bit.
No, absolutely. When you pitch, it's got to be really short and succinct, because people don't have the time to read reams of stuff. They really, really need to be able to pick up what it is that you're talking about. I mean, I was writing down what everybody does yesterday, actually, just so I knew who was in the room. But I was thinking about you guys, actually, because one of the things that you could be looking at is seasonal activity, because I know that you do the products that keep a room cool in the summer. So those kind of things, and things like interior design magazines, you know, for your smaller clients would work really well. But they also save people money, you know, in businesses. So there's lots of opportunities you could take there with the seasonal kind of things. And actually, it's a case of what tends to happen if you ring up, let's just use interior design for the sake of argument, but if you ring up an interior design magazine and you say, look, we've got this product and it helps consumers in this way, would you be interested in finding out more? They're already kind of aware of you, and if you send over just a paragraph saying, as discussed, we do this, and this, we've got some great case studies, would you be interested in speaking to us further, then that's likely to get their attention. And if you take a slightly different angle with the business press, because the business press will be interested in how you can save people money generally, and there are different environmental journalists out there interested in those kind of topics. So yeah, I would keep the pitches short, but again, it's down to that research into what those publications that you want to be in are looking for. Does that answer the question?
It does. Just a little follow up on that. In terms of forward features, are journalists and writers happy to share those? You
can usually find them online, actually.
Okay, cool.
So if you go to the website, and if they're not online, yeah, just ring up and ask, because people that they need. The thing is as well at the moment, because there are cutbacks in the media, often they're looking for different stories. So it's worth doing it because they haven't got the bandwidth to do it themselves. And when we get commissioned articles, it's actually saving them a lot of work.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Sorry, Charanjit, quick question. Do you have the phone number for the BBC News?
I have, I've got the news gathering email address.
Okay, I've got the email address, as you said, to follow up a press release.
Because BBC News obviously is a massive organisation, so it depends, you know, because you might want to speak to BBC Three Counties, or you might want to speak to Newsnight, or you might want to speak to the Today programme. Each of whom have got a different phone number. So who is it specifically you're looking for?
Well, it's going to be, we're creating up to about 4,000 jobs in the UK to help job seekers back into work.
That's great.
We've got recruitment specialists who have been made redundant. So what we're just about to launch over the next 2 weeks now is a franchise scheme, which is at cost, where they get equity. We've got HR managers who are helping job seekers back into work using our £2 million CV builder tool. So
Wow.
This tool used to be free. We've now stopped it being free because the government wouldn't fund it. And now what we're doing is making sure every single job seeker has a CV that employers will appreciate. And then these freelance consultants will actually guide them to, they will actually physically create the CV, help them with the interview techniques, all within a 30-minute intervention. So it's very unique, very inspirational. And in this recession depression, it's very much needed.
So who have you emailed it to?
Well, the press release is just going to be finalized by this Friday. Then we send it out. I'd love to send it to you just to get a quick heads up. And then what we're going to be doing is following up with a number of newspapers. But BBC is something which is very, very current with what's happening with the job market and our kids not getting jobs and all these government initiatives, which half the time the money is being wasted. We were talking about billions of pounds. So
yeah, I'm happy to look at the press release, but the person, the address I would send it to for this particular thing would be newsgathering@bbc.co.uk, because that hits all the different programmes.
Newsgathering at BBC.
Newsgathering@bbc.co.uk. So I'm giving away my trade secrets here.
I do have 1 or 2 contacts, and someone who's in the BBC, so we'll be following you up. But I will definitely send you up. Love what you're doing. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks.
I think BBC is, if it helps as well, is first name dot last name at bbc.co.uk.
bbc.co.uk.
Yes.
So if you have got a name, it's always worth.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
The economics editor might be interested in you might be interested in contacting the economics editor as well.
Well, I was going to say, Mike, do you do Origin doors? Because we're just about to replace our front and back doors with Origin. So if you do, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. Get in touch.
Okay. Nice talking to you. Nice night working.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
I'm the chair of a board of the trustees of a community library, and we're also a business. As you're aware, I mean, our business has now sort of ceased to exist. Our business now is books, serving books, with all the aspects of a business of selling things, letting, that's all gone by the board. I was interested in your talking about live presentations, because if you're thinking we're providing a service which is borrow our books, which is really exciting, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Our competition is Amazon and all those sorts of people. It's the online books. We want you to borrow our books physically.
Yeah.
I was wondering about the idea of you talking about sort of live presentation. I was thinking of sort of our volunteers, because we're largely as staffed, as you can imagine. We have one paid staff and volunteers, is recommending our books, you know, on live
Definitely.
book reviews, sort of, I love this book by Robert Harris, which is just coming out, you know, sort of thing. It's worth training people up to do that, do you think?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's nice and spontaneous.
No, absolutely, definitely. I think that, I mean, I'm obsessed with books anyway, but no, if you've got people's opinions, that's why Waterstone, I'll join in. But people like Waterstones, that's why Waterstones are quite successful, because they've got those, they give the impression of being quite personal, because people are reviewing books they've actually read. But no, I absolutely think that that would work really, really well for you, and on social media channels as well. So, you know, because if you've got the videos, then you can put it on.
Well, I was just thinking, because last night, I mean, I did, I listened to Sue Black on in Penguin Live, reviewing her new book in conversation. It was Zoom, obviously, and everybody, we Zoom everything now. So yeah, I think if we've got the video and embed that in our on our new website, and do that sort of thing, it's worth it.
On your Instagram channels, if you've got Instagram stories. I think the other thing that you could do as well that might be good is engage with local literary festivals. So there's Buckingham Literary Festival. So they might be interested in supporting you some way on their social media channels. There's also, if you look into local authors potentially. So
yes, we've been there. I mean, the trouble is we've got Tame a few miles away, and Tame is Oxfordshire, not Buckinghamshire. So the Tame Literary Festival. So the Oxfordshire Library Services are very jealous of, you know, Tame.
Yeah, of course.
Though the only local independent bookshop which we use is in Tame, but we're Haddenham, which is Buckinghamshire, which is.
Well, you got the Buckingham Literary Festival is in Buckingham.
In Buckingham, which is a long way away, actually.
It is, but they do a lot of social media stuff, so it's worth, because we did their PR for 3 years. So they're happy to be involved in things like this. But yeah, I mean, do you want to drop me an email actually, and if I have any thoughts, we can have a chat or something.
Yes, I will indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Important initiative.
Keep reading. Turn the pages.
I just bought my holiday. Well, I've got some of my holiday books. I'm only allowed 10 physical books, and the rest I have to take on a Kindle, because that's all I do for the whole 2 weeks.
Shame on you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Anyone else have any questions? It'd be great if everyone could put on their cameras and we could get a group photo if everyone's happy for that. Susan, we can see yours. There we go. Look at this.
Mike is there.
I have got a question. We do quite a lot of, because like you said, Kerry, a lot of our work is very visual. You can see behind us with that sort of digital wallpaper. That's the sort of stuff we do. So we do a lot of install videos and case studies and stuff like that. Is there any interest from a PR point of view in those? I mean, I guess they might put them online, embedded as a story, but are they a sort of decent way in, or not really?
Yeah, I think there are. So one of the things that I was talking about earlier is a client of ours. They're they're a property maintenance company, but one of the things that they're struggling with right now is the fact they can't get through London because of all the road closures, which is why we're trying to get them to take videos of themselves and the drivers stuck in certain places. Because if we got that to BBC News, BBC London News, then that is something they might be prepared to run, because it's real frustration and it's affecting a small business. But yeah, if you got that to someone, to one of your key target publications, and that's so they can write on their social media channels as well, so you can reach a wider audience through their social media channels. But yeah, I mean, again, we can have a chat if you want, but the videos are going to be more and more and more important, because it's a much easier way to people to quickly pick up on what it is that you're talking about. But again, it comes back to finding the right media. I mean, I don't know how you guys have been doing over this time, but the success stories are going really well right now. So the Telegraph has I'm just trying to find it here. Do you know what? I was just about to get my newspaper out, but I shan't bother because that's going to take ages. But they have, on Saturday and Sunday, like positive business news stories. So how people have either pivoted or how they've grown over this time. But if you've got a positive story, then it's worth talking to the Telegraph and the Times. But one of the most powerful things you can do is just buy all the newspapers, everything, and go through them and see where those opportunities are. Does that help, Mike?
Yes, it's really helpful. Yeah, it's good. It's just doing it, I think, isn't it?
It's finding the time.
Yeah. I think one of the most important things is like you say, just identifying what you need to achieve and what it's going to deliver for you and how it shows you as a company, isn't it? And then reviewing whether it works or not, because you can spend a lot of time doing a lot of work on stuff that then sits somewhere on your website or doesn't get picked up by anyone else, and it can feel a little bit frustrating. So I think
absolutely.
The perseverance and patience message is a good one as well.
Yeah, the problem with PR, and I think this is true, unless you've got someone else doing it, this isn't the sales pitch obviously, but it's very, I think we struggle with it as well, actually, because we've got client work to do. So, when we come to do our own PR, we're a bit like, oh, hang on, we'll put that on the back burner. But, when we're talking to our client, the veterinary company, when you see the impact it's had on their business, it's and even the literary festival with the PR for, that actually got footfall. It gets people to the site, and it's that long-term impact, because someone might not need your product right now, but they might need it in 6 months, and it's just putting that thought in their head so that when it comes down to it, they're actually going, oh, actually that would work really well for us, we should do that now, and they'll come back to you the more they see you.